had to get it back. So don't question me about my thing. Just do your thing and be cool. Cause I know exactly whose I am. Don't worry about it, homie, do you. Cause I've been rapping for a minute now. Used to walk around there, but I'm living now. I'm just being myself. And evidently people gon' hate when you coming with a different sound. So don't question me about my thing. Just do your thing and be cool. Cause I know exactly whose I am. Don't worry about it, homie, do you. Cause I've been rapping for a minute now. Used to walk around there, but I'm living now. I'm just being myself. And evidently people gon' hate.
What's up, my tokers, jokers, and smokers? It's your man, Chef Rod, back again with another edition of the Daily Chronicles. Today, I've got the one, the only Trustee Eric Gunnels on the show. Eric, man, thanks for coming on the show, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rodney.
Absolutely, dude. It's been an honor to be able to go up to the Capitol here in Michigan and fight alongside you for cannabis, activism and rights and stuff, man. Before we kind of move on into that, just to jump right in, if you will, tell me a little bit about how you got into it, like a little bit as to like why you do what you do and who Eric Gunnels is.
Well, really, I have been an advocate for cannabis my whole life. I've always known that natural medicines and that were better than pharmaceuticals. My mom took a lot of pharmaceuticals, and I read the side effects of those, and I thought, man, this is troubling. She's, my mom deals with a lot, but so I've always thought that cannabis medicine is better, and right around the time that I was about 18 is when I kind of discovered that. I wasn't really a part of the stoner crowd when I was a kid. I was just pretty neutral. I just graduated high school. I went to college in 2009 after the economic downturn. Well, actually, it was 2007, 2008, after the economic downturn of the economy. But right about that time is when the Michigan medical marijuana law passed. And so from that moment on, I became quite an activist. I was always an activist for cannabis, but when that changed, when the medical marijuana law passed, I was one of the first 100 licensed caregivers in the state. I just knew people that this would benefit from, that they would benefit from it. And so I became their caregiver, and I've been doing that ever since.
I think that's first and foremost fucking admirable. Let me just say that. Secondly, there's a massive need for what you do and the others like you activist wise. And I don't think that people, the general public per se, I don't think that they realize it. I don't think that they realize that their rights are under attack. I don't think that people realize that their rights are under attack because of corporate greed. You want to kind of elaborate a little bit about that and kind of tell people why that is?
Well, yeah, I've always kind of known that, freedom is something that you have to exercise. Freedom is something that you have to assert. It's not just given. I cite the Constitution many times, like other people do, but nonetheless, it's like your rights don't really exist until you assert them, and especially in a court of law. So with that, I kind of tell people, like, look, there's individual rights, and then there's corporate rights, and you can clearly see the difference in almost every political subject matter across the country. And that's what kind of prompted me into going down a path of politics. I became a trustee of my local township in 2012, and I've won my third term election in a row since then, which I served.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. And so it's been a great honor and a pleasure to serve the people and to try to stand up for their rights. And the way I equate often corporate rights with individual rights is, I use this example. I say, okay, the Second Amendment is the example I point to, which says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Or it actually has more to say than that, but I'm just citing the last part of it. And basically what that really amounts to in translation through the court system is that, yes, you can go purchase a firearm from a registered, licensed firearm dealer, anywhere in the country. But you can also purchase a firearm from an individual anywhere in the country. So, that's an individual personal freedom, and we don't have that same freedom with cannabis. It's like we left that part off the table. Like, yes, cannabis is legal for a person in almost every way except selling it. And so,
No, do you think that was done on purpose, or do you think that that was just, oh, our bad, we missed that?
no, it was clearly done on purpose because
Okay.
you know
Just making sure.
Yeah, because it was done on purpose because corporations don't want individual people to have the same rights as
Right.
what they do, because their rights come with the things that they can do come with a license and permission to do certain things that other people can't, and or on a particular piece of property. So then you have individual rights, but then you have corporate rights. And my view of the world is that I don't care if the Walmart of weed comes to town, just as
Mhm.
long as your neighbor can sell marijuana at a garage sale. You know, that's my take on it. I mean, I have a personal opinion that this is America, and everything in America is for sale, and that if you have a product or a service
Mhm.
that someone else is willing to pay you money for, and it doesn't matter whether that service is being is carpentry, or it's sex work,
Mhm.
it
Its service is rendered for a reason.
bingo, and simply that in and of itself should not constitute a crime in any way.
Exactly.
Yet clearly with sex, drugs, alcohol, we can clearly say that's not the case. It's not the
Mhm.
same way as it is with the Second Amendment, which to some people is quite strange. Like, wow, you could go purchase a firearm from an individual? Yes, absolutely, you can.
Mhm.
Anytime, anywhere. You could meet them at a parking lot and do the exchange at a parking lot.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just that it's done all the time. Yet, if it's done with anything to do with medical or something else, then yeah, then it's a taboo. It's a no go. You can't do that. And of course, there's all this other hoopla that goes with it, like taxation and
Mhm.
regulation, and those are just kind of dirty government words for the understanding that government really often messes things up and they don't get it right. So when the government tries to regulate something, it's often over-regulated or over-restricted in some way that allows a corporation to have some kind of differential advantage. Likewise, even trying to regulate a public-private morality, like
Mhm.
the government has tried to do for the last 82 plus years with cannabis, and they failed. And of course, we proved that. And then of course, the voters, approved legalization in 2018. So we were always right. The
Right.
activists that always knew that public perception and change was going to occur. We were always right.
Mhm. It's interesting because, like, in a country full of, like, democracy, allegedly, like, we find ourselves really reaching for everything that we can sell, and then trying to sell it, buy low, sell high. That's the entire, like, emphasis of capitalism. But I really like to bring, a tinge of anarchy to the table. And when I say that is, I don't really necessarily mean anarchy in the sense of, hey, let's grab our pitchforks and, like, Molotovs. Although I love Ukraine right now, but that's a whole different story. But you
Sure.
know, Molotovs are directly connected to anarchy, just based off of the taboo idea. Well, such as the same thing as selling firearms in a parking lot. People are like, "Well, that's so," but it's 100% legal. Just because you don't agree with it and you don't know about it does not make it illegal. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And people need to understand this. Like, it goes back to the most basic of things. Furthermore, when I do a tinge of anarchy, when I say that, I look at it, I go, okay, well, hang on a second. If I want to go to a parking lot and sell a firearm to this individual, okay, who I can do a background check or not, you can do it in the parking lot of a police, most of the time it's done in the police department, which I would agree with that. That's safe. It's fine. I get it. Okay.
And I think pistols are, because pistols have
Right.
to be registered with your county, I think.
Correct.
Right.
Shotguns do not, and that's a whole different,
Right.
but most of the time, if there's let's call it a firearms sale or something, there's some kind of background check done, or there should be, let's say.
Right.
That's my point. So, long are the times of us going, why isn't there rules and statutes in place? Now we're starting to put these rules and statutes in place because the world is evolving. The world is shifting. You have to kind of move with it, and I look at Michigan as an icon. Like it's kind of like a green shift. It definitely was and still is in most parts a gold rush, instead of gold though, green. Let's face it, Michigan grows some very good cannabis. Michigan has some very good cannabis companies doing some even better things, But at the same time, we have a specific group named the MCMA that is currently attacking these caregivers' rights. Well, why does that matter? I'll tell you. It matters because the entire idea and reason that Michigan was put on the map cannabis-wise was for the patients. Ergo, medical cannabis came first. Let's just point that out. That is the fact, okay? Initially, you could have you were a caregiver and you could have up to, I believe, 5 patients and up to 75 plants. Now, that does not mean that you're growing 75 plants at once. Oh, excuse me, 72. Right, you're 72. Right, 72. My bad. So 72 plants. But that doesn't mean that you're growing them all at the exact same time. You would actually be pretty stupid to do that. And it would cost you a lot more money than you ever could possibly think. Well, this is true. This is true. But it's expensive.
And you don't have to, like, you can, I mean, Pete, there's so many different growing techniques. You could have a small space 72. You could do, but go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, you could have up to 72 plants. So that means that if there's a raid or someone kicks in your door or whatever reason, they have to have a warrant first, know your rights, they kick in your door and they sit there and count your plants and they get 72. They're not going to like that. They're going to start counting seeds. They're going to start counting stuff without THC content. They're looking, they're searching. Don't give them a reason. They don't have a warrant. Fuck off. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that bad.
Right.
Know your rights as a caregiver. So once you learn those rights, once we've established those rights back in, I believe it was 2007, 2008, right around that time for medical patients, then you notice the raids and things like that. And it's terrible because people are just trying to get, trying to do the legal thing, but still the government still finds loopholes even today in different states, I might add, so we've moved in the right direction, I believe. And so then, we made it in 2018. It was legal for adult use. You can smoke weed pretty much anywhere you want, within reason. Obviously, don't do it around kids, stuff like that, and parks or something. But let's face it, we weren't doing that to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Right. Every stoner, quote unquote, knows a spot, and it's never a playground. So, it's like next to a river or hiking or something. Like, it's usually 9 times out of 10. Exactly, discreet and like off the beaten path. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's this stigma that we're educating and advocating against, okay? By allowing Michigan to, do what it has done cannabis-wise through medical patients, that's the entire foundation of and what's put Michigan on the map, period. Okay, so now you have companies that come in, band together with a shit ton of resources and money. It's interesting that money buys you more resources. We'll talk about that a little later possibly. But, the fact is, it's literally, and I've heard this from a quote on the other side of the fence, this person said, and I quote, more money than God. No, I'm sorry. When you threaten me with something like that, I'm just going to laugh at you because it doesn't matter. You understand? And then people were like, well, you have to have a following and you have to have view counts and stuff like that to even be considered. No, you don't. You have to be, relevant. You have to be relatable. You have to be real. And honestly, if you take away your money, what do you have? And they're like, well, internally integrated, self-sustaining. hang on a second, it's self-sustaining. So if it was self-sustaining, then it would have just created itself instead of you throwing a shit ton of money at stuff. You know what I'm saying? And then it's interesting because those same companies, when you try their cannabis, it's not good.
Right.
It's just not good.
Right, and
I'm
that's
sorry.
because no, you're right. You're on track. I mean, you're on point with the whole because because now it's all about quantity, not quality. It's
Yep.
all about how much money can you get for it, not how good is it actually or what it's actually doing for the patient. It's
Right.
no longer about well, let's do this for the patients. No, we're going to do this for money, and if the patients benefit from it, okay, great. Um, yeah, I don't like that mentality. But we did also commercialize this for everyone else. And for that I am thankful for, and that is why I voted for Prop 1. Even though today I still have issue with the commercial industry, and that's why I support that boycott list that's floating around. And and shout out to those guys for putting it out. I mean, and anyone that supports it and shares it. I think that the boycott is important because it shows big business, especially in the world of social media today.
And it's affecting them.
Yeah,
That's the best part.
that's
It's
the thing.
working.
It is working, and it's because of things like social media that those things do work. Look at how, and I tell you, look no further than the 2016 election between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Is to see, because I mean, nobody ever thought Bernie had a chance, but social media made Bernie Sanders a rock star politician. And I mean, he took on the world's greatest Manchurian candidate, Hillary Clinton, and he beat her. You know what I mean? On so many levels. I mean, in the end, obviously, the Democratic convention gave it to Hillary, and that's why we got Trump. I mean, I always get into these political conversations about Trump and Democrat, Republican, because as a trustee, you have to party align. Okay, but I didn't vote for Biden, and I didn't vote for Trump. I just didn't like either one. I couldn't.
That's fair.
And
most people would be like, "Oh, well, no, that's fair."
Right. I just couldn't, and I voted third party because I want people to start thinking outside the box. Politically, we don't have to keep rinsing and repeating the same old ideology. We could come up with new stuff and be okay. Getting back to the cannabis industry, though, not to be straight too far off into politics, because
you're good. There's nothing more political than cannabis right now.
But that is a point, Rodney, and that is exactly it. And that's what I've tried to explain to everybody in the cannabis community, is that no matter, I understand that most cannabis consumers want to just turn away from the government bureaucracy, BS, and propaganda, and they just want to live their lives in a happy, peaceful manner. I know that. I resonate with that. Really, I do. But at the same time, I knew that I had to become a part of the system if I wanted to change it. And running for your local government is important. And if there's anything I'd want your listeners today to take away from, is that it doesn't matter if you smoke cannabis. It doesn't matter what your vibe is. Just run for public office. And and if people resonate with your ideas and your decision making, they'll vote for you. And if they don't like your decision making, they'll unelect you, and that's how real change occurs. And I figure, since I've won 3 4-year terms in a row, that the people are pretty happy with my decision making. And I did write an ordinance, and I drafted a House bill. I also ran for state representative. That's a part of why I did that. Because I do believe that we could use some change at the Capitol. In fact, look, I mean, if it was up to me personally, and I could just do one thing to change the whole, marijuana laws, both 2008 law and the 2001 law, what would that one change be? Be a real simple change. Just under the uses described for marijuana, just include the word sale, comma, sale, comma. Just like manufacturing, possession, transporting, transportation, transferring. all those words have meanings, legal definitions. Why not? I mean, if we can grow marijuana and we can manufacture marijuana, why in the heck can't you sell it in America? That just
Because
does
they
not
can't
make
control the
sense.
tax on it.
There you go. That's it. And you know what? That's what we said for
Yeah.
like 30, 40 years of our lives. Every
Mhm.
generation has said the same thing. The only
Yeah.
reason marijuana is not legal is because it can't be taxed. And then the other flip side of this is, well, Eric, we figured out how to tax it now. Yeah, we
Mhm.
did, but guess what? Now we also gave every individual person the right to grow their own. I mean, on my road alone, I would say every third house down the street is a grow operation.
You know, I'm
And
with
that's
all of
not an
that. Like,
exaggeration at all in my community, at all. And
right.
that's both indoor and outdoor. I mean, people grow outside here in this community. Everybody grows their 12 in their backyard. Look, bottom line, at the end of the day, everybody has a good quality cannabis for an
Mhm.
extremely low price, and that what that does is in the reality of that, reflecting back on our economic system and our whole capitalistic based system, what that reflects on is the fact that it doesn't merit the spending of all this huge money and these millionaire conglomerates to come in to try to control it. It doesn't merit that. The market, the real market, which we haven't even seen yet, does not merit all that money, all that facility, all that testing, all that BS that we have to go through. And it's like you can't even apply for a license unless you got $500,000 in your bank account,
You
or
have to have liquidable assets, they say. Yeah.
yeah, or you're willing to sell off,
Mhm.
the majority of your company to somebody else so that their high-priced attorneys can set you up. I mean, that's the problems we face, and so it's
Now,
go ahead.
I think there's a solution to that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I
No,
gotta
please go
say
ahead.
it before I forget.
I
I
was on a
believe.
roll there, Rodney.
Oh, you're good, man.
I had to
No,
spit it
no,
out,
it's
buddy.
it's fucking gold, baby. It's fucking gold.
Yeah,
Um, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe there should be three facets of cannabis, since the fact that we have. Let's face it, we have home grow. Like you said, everybody's growing a good quality product, and I think they should sell it. That's fine. We won't talk about the illicit, market, because it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? But
sure,
there's home grow, much like home brew for beer. Okay.
right, of course,
There's craft. There should be craft cannabis, which there is, micro businesses and shit. Then you got corporate cannabis. Now it's funny because I met with a state representative last year. I forget her name, but it's on my Facebook somewhere. And she asked me about food. She goes, "How should we do it with food and events?" And it's funny because this is before any of these big events even happened. And it's me, myself. Okay. I was with Gigi Diaz, Jen Bronson, and my buddy Phil. We all sat with the state rep, and I've got the pictures to prove it, if you will, and the notes of the whole nine. The point is, and I straight up told her, I was like, you should tax it and run it just like alcohol. And she goes, "What?" I'm like, does that blow your mind? And that's exactly what I said to her. And I kind of laughed a little bit, but inside, that sarcastic wry, that she could obviously visibly see, I told her, I go, "Listen, it doesn't matter what you're going to do, because people can still grow at home. They should be able to." And she goes, "I agree with that. It's just a plant." I'm like, "Okay, moving on. People should be able to have it, sell it out of their house and grow craft cannabis for people like caregivers do. Like caregivers do. Not what they're doing, but like caregivers do." She goes, "Okay, that makes sense." I was like, "And then you're going to have corporate cannabis come in and do the same thing like with beer. Listen, as long as those three things stay in their lanes and don't try to bleed over, we're going to be okay." So if you tax you basically the same rate across the board, everyone's not going to be mad, except for the corporations, because corporations are going to do the quantity over quality, and they're like, "Well, that's not fair. If we're getting taxed, at 10%, because our 10% is going to be a hell of a lot more money than home growers." Well, that's kind of your own damn fault. You know what I'm saying? That's welcome to capitalism.
right.
What do you want us to do? It's fair across the board. What I don't like is the fact that corporate cannabis right now is directly influencing the rights and regulations and laws of the land, fucking period.
Well, and of individuals rather than sticking to their
100%.
own. If they want to, if the cannabis companies of
Mhm.
Michigan wanted to sit there and debate and lobby the legislators on how to reduce regulations, make small mom and pop shops more equitable in especially in rural areas or less populated areas of Michigan. Um, I'd be all for that. But if
Hey,
they're
listen, they wouldn't know that they
to
were
take
there
away
if we didn't tell
individual
them.
rights, that's the problem I have. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I was just interrupting. It's my fault. My ADD, man.
No,
You're
I
absolutely right.
have it too. I have it too. I do that a
You're
lot.
all
I
right.
get my brain will start, thinking faster than my mouth can talk. So yeah.
No, 100%. No, you're absolutely right. And my point there is, to add more to your point, they wouldn't know that our grows or anything would exist if we didn't tell them.
Right. Right.
They might smell it and be like, someone's smoking pot. They'll never think that we're growing it. That's my point. It's a flower.
And there's a two-part problem we have right now currently. Number one, we have um, we have a a large portion of our community which says no more government involvement, no more rules. And I resonate loudly with that sentiment because I myself have been raided by the state police. It's not fun. I've been dragged out of my bed at gunpoint in my underwear. It's not fun. I have severe PTSD from that. Um, the way we treated cannabis before, I really resonate with the sentiment that no more government, no more rules. We need to be wide open. On the other hand, I am a trustee, and I've been a trustee for 9 years now, going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the one hand, I understand law, and I understand the thinking process that goes into the decision making of law. And since since I am a caregiver and elected official both, I think that gives me an advantage to be in the middle ground here and say, okay, cannabis community. One of the biggest problems we have is that the word sale doesn't exist in our vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And because it doesn't, we're shut out from the corporate structure, and we're shut out from actually making money on the on the fruits of our labor. And we're also subjected to more law enforcement criticism because if we're not paying tax and we're not paying into a system that if we're not a contributor in some way, well, then you're looked at by law enforcement and 40% of the country that works for the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
They look at you like you're fringe, like you're counterculture, like you're you're dead weight.
You're queer to them.
You're not a contributor.
Yeah, you're queer to them because they don't understand what makes you tick,
Right.
and they don't understand your ways. They don't see it from your perspective. I want to go back real quick about the verbiage that you said that lawmakers use. That's the best way to understand that. And if you guys, any of the viewers out there want to really start this, because I've represented myself in court. Believe it or not, you can do that. It's a term called legalese. So everything is written in legalese. That's if you understand what legalese kind of means and why and how and stuff in different terms of it, you're better going to understand the verbiage used. Going more to that point, when I spoke with the state rep, they were looking up terms and stuff as well. They couldn't use the word house. They had to use the word tutelage. And they're like, well, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? They had to look it up. So Google is more helpful than you would actually want to admit. But the fact is, I'm just not sure why they have to write it that exact way. And that's never really explained to anyone. It's just kind of inferred along, the ranks of politicians and whatnot. But it's, my experience that they have to look these things up as well. But truth be told, I think that there's a lot more advocacy that we need to do. I think that there's a lot more work that we need to, put into, kind of getting the word out there and advocating against this and advocating for, cannabis use. Now, listen, here's the thing that they don't realize. If you were to just put the word sale in there, they still make their money. That's what I'm saying. They're just
Right.
not allowed to kind of monopolize the part. Because here's the thing: you think Michigan is the only place in the country that this is happening? No, it's everywhere. You understand what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's.
It I think the biggest hangup, Rodney, is from the biggest apprehension from our cannabis community is that they don't want the word sale included because with the word sale comes with regulation. So and so regulation sort of comes with sales, and so most cannabis people don't want the government involved in their lives. They sure don't want the government coming into their house and inspecting their
Mm-hmm.
home. They sure don't want the government putting exorbitant fees and taxes on them, which would then all of a sudden make the entire industry uh, inoperable.
Right.
And that I think is where the trouble comes in convincing our own community that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Yes, we did. I would fully accept that Michigan's law is the best written law in the country. No
Hands
doubt.
down. Hands
No
down.
doubt. Hands down, I would totally say that both on the medical marijuana law of 2008
Mm-hmm.
and Prop 1 of 18. I would hands down say to anybody that they are the best written laws ever. However, we did make a mistake by leaving out the word sale in Prop 1. And we also made a mistake by not acknowledging the caregiver in Prop 1. It's
What do
like
you think about the federal legalization rumors spreading right now? Like, well, how do you feel about that on the federal level?
I feel. How do I feel about it? I feel both excitement and fear.
I'm nervous. Yeah.
Because let's just be honest. I mean, politicians are known for messing things up and just getting it wrong. Like I mean, I have that trouble daily at a township level. I can only imagine what it's like at the federal level. You see what I'm saying? I mean,
Oh yeah.
I mean, if I told everybody the kind of things I saw, government officials do behind the scenes, it would blow people's minds.
I mean, look at it this way. Even
But
on the local level
and
here,
this is the local level. Can you imagine
right?
what it is at the federal level? I mean, it's got
Right.
to be the world's biggest shit show.
It is. It is. And from what I understand, at a local level, part of like the changes that they're trying to make is okay, you can grow, and if you want to be legit and stuff, that's fine. But you basically make no-knock warrants legal. Okay, that's
Right.
illegal. You understand? Even
Right.
but if you're like, hey, that sounds good, and you just sign on without reading it, guess what? You just gave up your right. Meaning,
Right.
hey, you signed this shit, it's illegal. We can kick in your door and destroy your house and kill your dog. You know what I mean? And they will.
Let me give you another parody to that. What you just said. The concealed weapons permits license in Michigan. All right. Most people that get a concealed weapons permit, they have no idea that when they get that license that they're actually signing away their Fourth Amendment right, and you're also opening the door to get 3 to 4 additional felonies slapped on you just by having that license. I mean, it's okay to have that license,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Be careful.
But you have to, right. That just means that you have to become an extra alert person, and you have to be so on your A game. And the amount of scenarios which you could effectively and reasonably and legally use a firearm in public is so slim to none. It's not even worth doing, in my opinion.
So just based off of kind of like your angle on cannabis and the legal, perspective of, how do you feel about people sitting in prison, on a federal level or on the state level with cannabis charges, non-violent cannabis charges?
Well, on the state level, we gotta rescue those people. We got to rescue every single person that is sitting in jail or prison for a marijuana offense. Period. Get them the heck out of there. And even if their offense, their marijuana offense, may have actually stacked a different offense. So I think that should be taken into consideration as well.
Absolutely.
You know, if you went to prison because of you know, reckless driving, but it was your third offense on some kind of misdemeanor of marijuana, well then shit, man, you ought to be out. You know, on a federal level, that's difficult. I mean, obviously the principle is the same. Yes, we should get him out of there. However, it's not legal yet on a federal level. There's not much we can do. I know that there are groups right now in Michigan trying to organize to get people out of prison in Michigan, and I am so thankful for them. I know, I just know people have done that. So people in our community are doing that. So it's a great thing. And
you know, it's
horrible. I just want to say this. It's just horrible to think we're having an industry where people are making money and people are still sitting in jail. It's horrible.
Oh, it's beyond horrible. I don't think that we can. There aren't human words to describe it. You know, they should have never been there to begin with. But that's, you know, neither. It's besides the point.
Right.
What broke my heart even more so, and it blew my mind. A good friend of mine, who was incarcerated, actually made it known that while Amazon is fighting for legalization, because let's face it, they want to be, you know, the world's biggest weed dealer. That's exactly what will happen. Okay. They want to take that exact same, you know, business model, if you will, and implement it right alongside federal legalization. Now, that's interesting because Amazon owns a lot of stock in one of the world's largest private prison organizations. So why would you? That's interesting. You know, so you're making money on the backside from incarcerated people in your prison population because of illegal, quote unquote, you know, cannabis sales, but you're rallying to make money off of cannabis sales while okay, wait a minute, that makes you an asshole. You know what I mean? Like that makes you a massive hypocrite. But because everybody loves Amazon and whatever have you, and they have money, it doesn't matter. But that's my point. Like that's the shitty things that happen. Like everybody, you know, wants to point out. Okay, let me back up. So everyone doesn't get offended by trying to offend someone else or disrespect someone else to prove their validity. Okay, that's like cutting off your nose to spite your face at that point. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so let me get this straight. You have no issue shitting on my ideas to prove the validity of yours when I said absolutely nothing about yours, but just because my views are different, you're right and I'm wrong. That's not how this works. People need to learn how to disagree, but people also need to learn how to fucking pay attention first and foremost. Because here's the thing, just because you disagree doesn't mean that you're right. I want to say that. That's what people need to understand. Okay. However, if you disagree and you are right, then people are like, well, what does right actually mean? It's all perspective. Oh my fuck, you know what I mean? So it's just they're gonna argue to argue.
Well, like, let me throw in an example of this. Of what you're just saying, like the hypocrisy of government. You know, and this could go back to when it was originally made illegal in the first place for reasons of racism and empire building, you know, capital competition and so forth, back to the 1930s.
And that's just cannabis. That's not even illegal bullshit in government.
Right.
We won't even.
Right. But then the government has always been hypocritical, and that's what just drives me crazy. And this is why it's so important to encourage people to run for public office. The hypocrisy remains there because the next generations are not taking the initiative to take it serious enough to actually run for office. But you can't just be a 20-year-old person and say, yeah, I'm just going to run for office, because you
got to be incentivized.
And I don't mean to be like age discriminatory here, but because I'm 42 now. You know, like I was 32 when I first ran for government. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't ready in my 20s because I didn't understand enough about how the world worked. When you get into your 30s and your 40s, Now you have a better understanding of how the world works, and you're young enough to remember how your dreams and passions were thwarted by the system, but you're mature enough mentally and understand enough about the world to understand, okay, this needs to be fixed. And I'll give you an example of this. Just like what you just said a moment ago of the federal government taking in money and revenue and taxes and all this and that, but then not letting people out of jail. It's the same thing applied, and to every form of government, including local government. For example, we had an ordinance in our township that said marijuana was an act of immorality. Okay, and it had been, I don't know how long that ordinance had been on the books, but it was there. And then only after this getting reelected to my third term with a third generational board was I able to look at my colleagues and go, hey guys, by the way, we just received our first check from the tax revenue of the state's marijuana industry,
Right.
of the excise tax.
Yeah.
Which, to my township, the first quarter check was $57,000. Now, to a small township that operates on a shoestring budget, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
And I looked at my colleagues and I go, now, do you think it's right for us to accept this money and praise to the community how we're going to
Different story. Different story.
Right. How we're going to pave roads. We're going to pay for our fire department. We're going to lower your taxes, blah, blah, blah. And with this new money. And at the same time, you're going to say with an ordinance, which is a statement of your principles and ideas, that, oh, it's immoral. And I looked at my colleagues and I was like, so with that said, I'm going to make a motion that we abolish that ordinance that says it's immoral, and we write a new one that says we recognize the will of the voters. And sure enough, we did. I mean, it took several months to do.
But you got it done.
But we got it done. And I think very other few communities, which all have historical laws and ordinances and things on the book, which do these things and make police power ordinances and marijuana and things like that illegal, they still exist. And even though Prop 1, you may say, oh, well, Prop 1 overrides that. You're right, it does when you get into a state court. But guess what? The mentality and the law and the statute still exists. So that means there's something to argue about. That means there's something to reference. That means, oh, well, I pulled someone over. Is it medical marijuana or is it this marijuana? Well, if it's this marijuana, is he carrying it? It should just be, marijuana should just be removed from the vocabulary of law enforcement, period.
They don't what's the word? They don't compartmentalize it and break it down. Alcohol, you know what I'm saying? They'll go, oh, well, that's a different kind of whiskey. Oh, that's a bourbon is not the same. We understand they're different. We understand that there's a difference from whiskey and vodka. You know what I'm saying? But they're taxed the same, and that is my point. So why would you go trying to implement something completely radical and illogical into cannabis? Oh, because you don't know. You're trying to cover up the fact that you just never thought. That's my point. It's here now. Deal with it, okay? Right. If the statutes don't exist, create them. That's what your job is for. That's what we pay you tax dollars for, and this isn't aimed at you. Right. And it's like, that's why we do that. If you don't want to do your job, that's fine. We'll elect somebody else, because that's the thing. If I go into a kitchen and I don't feel like cooking today. Yeah, you think I'm going to have a job anymore? No. Right. You see my point? Like, they're not going to like that. That's not even touching the fact that, there are a lot more cases of, crooked government officials taking corporate bribes and things like that nature. I mean, look at what we, at the federal level. Okay, look at, senators. Senators make X amount of money. Okay, then how come they've got that much money coming in a month? Now, that's what we pay them tax dollars wise, but how come they make this much money? That doesn't make any sense. If that doesn't show you, corruption, I don't know what does. Now, it's not a... Sorry.
I think it's because politicians get involved and they have a greater sight. They have a greater understanding of the whole structure of the system and which way it's going. So they have more access to what I would call like trend analysis. And so a politician could say, oh, well, we're going to pass this new energy bill. Well, that means solar is going to become the new thing. So in my own home state, I'm going to invest in solar, and I'm going to tell my other
Mhm.
guy broker to invest in solar, and you know, so
How is that not considered insider trading?
I guess the only reason I guess it's not is because from a political stance, really, and I tended to recognize this with many people that run or are eager to run for public office. They often have great foresight. Like I have great foresight.
Okay.
I can see things in the future, coming
Psychic
down.
abilities.
Yeah, it's like a it's all it is
Yeah.
all it is a it comes with experience of recognizing trend analysis.
You
And I
observe,
guess,
deduce, and calculate.
well, for example, the ordinances in Michigan, when the DeRuiter decision came down, because I'm a trustee, I get all the newsletters and the things written by attorneys and stuff like that that you guys never even get to see. And so I get all this information sent right to my mailbox at my township. And so I'm on the cutting edge of what every other elected official is receiving as far as information, and then being reactive to it. I recognize that, okay, there's going to be a trend going here where townships are going to start writing ordinances to restrict marijuana in communities. So what I did was I got busy writing one that I drafted ahead of everybody else, so that the framework of the debate did not go sideways.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, we get some obscure debates and obscure language and obscure ideas that local government can regulate marijuana when they can't, like they think. And of course, the DeRuiter decision was based primarily on commercial property understandings and zoning, not residential. And I tell people, I told my colleagues, and I tell elected officials. Like I was at the Arbela Township meeting on Monday, or it was
Mhm.
Tuesday. No, it was Monday,
Monday.
and so, I offered them a copy of my ordinance. They were looking at ordinances that were 10 pages long, a bunch of legal jargon that nobody really understands anyway, and
Mhm.
it's not going to hold up in court. And I'm like, look, that's that's nonsense. Just go with something simple. And the only restriction I've put in there that everyone points out as the main one is that, look, someone 21 and older has
Mhm.
got to live in a residential structure if you're growing marijuana there. That's it.
Yeah,
I think that's a very reasonable
I
and
think it is.
logical thing. You don't want a community being exploited. You don't want a bunch of outside people moving into your community, buying up residential homes next to each other and turning them all into grow operations when no one lives there. I mean, but on the other hand, if you're a caregiver or someone that wants to grow, you are welcome
Mhm.
to come to my community, as long as you're not creating a nuisance to the neighbor, and you're not and you pulled your permits accordingly before you set your grow up, and all that, and no annual inspections, no fees, no pre-registration, no permission or special land use, none of that BS. Just, you can do whatever you want, just don't exploit our community. That's it.
Right.
you know
Right. I mean, we won't talk about what a nuisance is from neighbor to neighbor. It's always going to vary, but
well,
you
it's
get the
highly
general
subjective
gist of
anyway.
it. Right. Right.
Right.
And but that's my point. Like, oh, you smell it. There's really not anything I can do about smells, but there are, carbon filters and things like that. But every now and then you'll get a little whiff, and
i
someone's like,
i,
if you're a
I
weed
thought
hound, you're like, where is it? You know what I mean? But
Right,
yeah.
I thought Buddy Dalton gave a good speech the other day, and he said, like, uh, you know, he said most cannabis growers are already people that operate discreetly anyway.
Hmm.
Valid point. These people are, most people that grow cannabis do not want to be
Yeah.
obnoxious.
That's
Uh,
actually where I got the point,
so,
because I talked to him. I had him on the show, a little bit ago, and that's actually where I'm drawing this from. That's where I kind of basically was like, huh. And then I realized, based off what Buddy said,
yeah,
they don't know if we don't tell them. So, you
right,
know what I mean?
right.
Like, it's interesting, man. Like, there's a lot more that we need to do cannabis wise, not only in just Michigan here, but in the country, and then
Absolutely.
worldwide. It's already happening worldwide, but I really feel that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we don't take care of our own backyards first, who are we to even step foot in a different state and talk about it, or on the
Right.
federal level? I
You're
mean,
right.
it's not about being right, bud, and I appreciate it, but it's about doing what's right, and this is doing
Right.
what's right. If you want to lead by example, such as Michigan has and still sort of is, dude, there's a lot of eyes on Michigan right now. A lot of eyes going, what's going on there? We're hearing murmurs and this and that and the other, and then you got your people going, well, fuck them, we're doing this, and that's great. All of that's fantastic, but there's a lot of eyes on this right now. I'm telling you right now, it's 2022, okay? By 2028, so it's the eighth thing, 2008, 2018, 2028, it's going to be a boom in cannabis. That's when everything's going to be, all the dust will settle, and then you're going to see the real players. You're going to see the way that the cannabis, like industry is going to be. That's the way, whether it's pop-up shops, it
Right.
doesn't matter. I would like to see the three facets, you know what I mean? Home grow, craft grow, corporate cannabis. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I would agree, and I agree, and I think we're going to have to. We're coming full circle in our conversation here. I think that's where we're going to have to understand the difference. There there will always be the commercial side of cannabis, and I think that that's eventually going to extend to uh, gas stations and convenience stores eventually, and it will just be commercialized. You'll be able to buy a pack of 20 pre-rolls like in a Marlboro pack. I mean, that's just the way it will be. But
Mm-hmm.
there will always be the craft connoisseur
Always.
shop, little mom and pop shop that's out in the middle of nowhere. That you just go there and you're just and the when you break open the bud, the terpene profile is going to be there.
Slaps you in the face.
Yeah, and I mean, you're just gonna be like, oh man, and you're gonna tell your friends like, hey, there's this place out here. We gotta go check this place out. Not only is it they have great cannabis, but they've got a great environment, and we can chill and relax. And I look forward to seeing that more. But there's consumption lounges, but then there's compassion clubs, and then there's private clubs. And then there should be places and spaces available in all bars and restaurants. There's a smoking section outside in a screened porch area, with plenty of ventilation that's not a part of the main building. It's a designated smoking area. I was at a bar right after we passed the law in 2018, probably 2019, and I was in the smoking section, of the bar. And
So
a joint. No one cared.
I will have to disagree with that, and here's why. It's always been there. Like, I don't know about you, and I'll criminalize myself here. I don't really give a shit. But every time that I, either worked at a restaurant, or which I did, obviously, or was at a bar, which I did, obviously, or whatever have you, I was smoking weed. So it was like, it's always really been there for my generation. I will say that, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, there was a smoking section. That's what we were doing. It was either a joint or a cigarette. Somebody was smoking something. Crack rocks, no kick rocks. You feel me? Like, it's always been there. We just need to make it legal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's my point. Like,
Right.
it already is, and that's
And-
why people they don't give a shit. But
And I think if we keep pushing this direction, regulate, we will deregulate. I look forward to. I know there are people working on decriminalization bills right now. Actually, to actually decrim marijuana. I think those are all great ideas, and I think we keep attacking this from all different angles. But before we go, I really want to encourage your listeners to not only have the courage themselves to run for public office, but to also encourage others to run for public office, because I think it's a real important thing. I think that, yes, there are some headaches that go along with it, but there are some props that go along with it too. Most positions of elected officials are a paid salary position, so you'll get some kind of a small stipend, which is helpful. It doesn't, it's not like you can make a living off of it in most cases, but it'll pay some of your bills, and that's helpful. And but more than mostly, just run because it's a duty to serve your country. It's a duty to serve humanity. we have a duty as a human being, as the caretakers of this planet, to be to be the caregivers, the caretakers of this planet, and to be and to make sure that we're not over capitalizing on something, or continuing. I mean, the one thing that really bothers me about this commercial industry is all the plastics and all the single
Yep.
use single use
We need
debris.
to create a recycling program for sure.
Oh my word, buddy!
I
I
have
mean,
way too many,
unbelievable.
I I will go to certain specific dispensaries if they carry certain, products such as like Redemption is a really good brand, ties to caregivers, and I have, they all use the same glass for the dabs when you buy the concentrates. Well, when you're done with it, what do? I do recycle mine. You know what I'm saying? I just throw it in the recycling bin. But I think that there should be, these companies, no matter who they are, at some point needs to be held responsible for that. So what I would do is like, yo, if you bring back a certain like poundage or something of recyclable products, we'll give you a discount off. That would earn my business.
Yeah, just like, well, they did the same thing with the pop can.
Mm-hmm.
They put a 10-cent refund on it.
Yep.
And so that makes, I mean, even if the individual person may say, well, it's not worth 5 cents for me to take this little plastic container back. Hey, it might be to somebody else if they're taking the
Exactly.
initiative to collect 50 of those things and get them out of the ditches and get them out and not out of waste dumps, and then back to the, so that person took the initiative. They're doing the work. They should capitalize on it. They should be the one to get the reward or the benefit or the the free joint or the whatever.
Right. The incentive. Right.
Yes. But I also, aside from the commercial industry, I also think we need to recognize that there was an industry before the commercial industry. There was and even though medical cannabis is not taxed because it was medicine, even though there were no regulations of sale and distribution, we had an industry here, and the industry was started by the caregivers, and the caregivers I look at as being the modern day medicine men of our tribes. And so, they should have been honored and respected when the dust settled, but we were not. Instead, here we got, township after township and city after city trying to pass ordinances demonizing the caregiver like there's some kind of, moonshiner. And I think that's tragic. And I think we need to go a different direction. We need to praise the caregivers. We need to honor them, respect them. We need to, pay homage to them for paving a road for the rest of the industry to drive on. I mean, myself and many others were major trailblazers in each of our communities. And yet, there's no reward or trophy at the end of the rainbow for us. And if we even attempt to take a stage and show people this quality cannabis that we grew, well, then we get attacked by the cops. Do you got a license for that? Well, no, well, it's not for sale then, And so we've got this mentality that, if you're a grower, you're still some fringe element of society that needs to be controlled and broomed under the rug. Well, I don't agree. I think that eventually what we're going to see is that the commercial industry, I think this is also trending across the nation. Many businesses go out of business. I don't know the exact. I've heard 80% or more in some cases. Now that's only hearsay. I haven't actually looked at that statistic, but I know that a lot of cannabis industry goes out of business within the first 5 years of legalization. And it's simply because a lot of people get into it, especially, wealthy people that think they're going to capitalize on it, make a quick buck, but they're not really into the industry. They're not smokers or consumers themselves. They don't have a love for it, and they don't understand the culture. So
yeah, no, I've encountered a few of those people already. Being very new in Michigan. Yeah,
we all.
I'm new as well, but it's not anything like it's a career change for me. So all of this is all new. I'm used to being stuck 4 walls on a roof cooking for people that let's face it, I don't like anyway. You know what I mean? And I can tell you that, when they say the customer is always right, they're not. Let's just face it. Like, listen, you came to my restaurant because I'm a chef and I can cook food.
Right.
That's great, and I gave you a choice of what you wanted to eat on a menu. That's great, but don't tell me that I'm doing it wrong when you know what I mean? Like, it's
Right.
that's not how that works.
Right.
I wouldn't judge a
I know
carpenter
exactly
on
what
building
you're
a
saying.
house.
I know
You know?
exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's like, and I look at the same way with the government trying to tell us how to grow cannabis.
Mhm.
It's like, wait. Don't try to tell me how to grow cannabis. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I know how to grow good cannabis. Other people I know how to grow good cannabis. They don't have to have cameras up their ass. They don't have to have, all this, a $2.7 million facility. Come on. You don't
Right.
need that to grow good quality cannabis.
Right.
And so I look at the industry and I know that a big part of it is going to fail because it's overbuilt and over exacerbated.
Mhm.
They're trying to. It seems like those are was it the MCA
Yeah, MCMA.
MCMA. They look at the whole cannabis industry and they're every time I see them on the news talking to some news reporter, they're trying to talk to the news reporter as if though they're treating cannabis like it's plutonium.
Right.
It's like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, and there are some practices with, of course, keeping your grow room sanitary and all that.
Mhm.
And look, there are some practices and standards I agree with. Okay,
Mhm.
having a clean facility, having not letting things touch the floor and things like that. Standardized practices, yes.
Same as food. Yep.
Same as food.
Mhm.
But I also look at the medical cannabis industry as being able to be its own self-regulated thing, which
Yeah.
it has been for the last 12, 13 years.
Mhm.
And that's why I wrote a House bill. If I run again for state representative, I would like to possibly entertain the idea of a House bill. And I drafted one for the purpose of kind of showing people what a real cannabis industry would look like in my view of the world,
Mhm.
given the fact that we have these two laws. Yes, there's a commercial industry, sure, if you want to go build a $2.7 million facility and do all that, sure. But then there's the medical cannabis industry that just always existed here. All cannabis use is medicinal use. I don't think that you can really say it's not, even if someone does not have a registered patient ID, they are still considered a potential Section 8 patient under the law verified by the Supreme Court. So that leaves the door wide open for people to still use this as a medicine and still use the medical program
Mhm.
for individual use and consumption and transfers. I would recommend, that we could self-regulate. I've put some minor restrictions in there, but they're very minor things that people could easily live with. And and then a little bit of local control because I think that maybe it would vary per location locally. But that, in my opinion, gives local people, and some people like this idea, some people don't. The people that don't like this idea are people that are from very upscale, snobbish communities where their trustees make $100,000 a year, and don't want to see any change. They get paid a lot of money to keep things the same,
Right.
not
Right.
to change. So those communities are difficult to get positions in, whereas you're more rural and the majority of your communities in Michigan, almost any person, if you took it serious enough and had a minimum of $1,000 to run an effective campaign, you could likely win if you were a person of substance. If
Mhm.
you had some great ideas and you had things to say, uh, and so I encourage people to do that. But I wrote the local control option for communities for people to be able to change your community from within. You don't like how the people that you're elected are doing things. You don't like the taxation with representation you currently got. Get involved. Run for office.
Do something about it.
Yeah, encourage other people to run for office. If you don't think you have what it takes, then encourage somebody you know that you think does have what it takes, and encourage that person to say, "Man, you ought to be up there and making decisions over us, not these other clowns." You know, and it's I don't even mean to call them clowns, but sometimes they are. Because I think a lot of respect has been lost in elected officials. I get disrespected all the time. It just kind of goes with the territory, and it's also kind of the sign of the times. Kind of goes with the times because
Hmm.
let's face it. I mean, a lot of people are unhappy with the system right now, and let's face it, a lot of the unhappiness is due to political stupidity and poor decision making. You know,
You
so
know, politics aside, I think that everybody should jump into the community and be part of the community. Let's face it, when you're younger, you don't really think that way. As you get older, you see the necessity for it. And if
yep,
we don't take care of ourselves, especially our backyard, there's not going to be anybody, left to take care of. Man,
right.
I got to be honest with you. Like, we're going to have to keep checking in with you. There's a lot more to be said in kind of the 30 minutes to an hour program that we have here, but that just shows the need of everything that we're doing and the importance. But hey, my tokers, my jokers, my smokers, this has been another edition of the Daily Chronicles. I want to thank, Trustee Eric Gunnels again, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's
Thanks
been
for
an
having me.
absolute honor, dude. Seriously. Um, if you had, like, one last thing to say to people out there that don't know about cannabis that are learning, what would you say to them and why?
There's the internet is so available to you now. Just do some research, watch some YouTube videos, watch some famous reputable people
Hmm.
give you their experience take on it. I recently saw a couple of good documentaries. One called Psychedelica, and
Hmm.
a lot of doctors and scientists on there. Not only did they study the plants and herbs and mushrooms, but they also experimented with them themselves. So they had
Hmm.
firsthand experience as well as anecdotal and scientific research. Um, Another one, I forget the name of it, but it had Ben Stiller and a bunch of other famous comedians in it. And they were
Hmm.
all like from Sting to Sarah Silverman um, to the late Carrie Fisher. They all talked about their psychedelic experiences with
I actually think it's called psychedelics. Yeah.
I think yeah, I think it
Yeah.
is psychedelics, and there's another one called Psychedelica,
Right.
and so you know watch these watch these videos, learn about how our ancestors, the ancients, the natives, um, they shamanism was a real thing back then, and they and the I that's why I look at the caregiver today as being like the modern day shaman.
Hmm.
It's those caregivers and those early home growers that really perfected the art of growing and growing good cannabis and breeding good strains and all that and that's why we have the wonderful variety that we have today. And this medicine can help people for both mental and physical effects on so many levels. I think when it's all said and done in the future, they'll look back today on society and they and people will gawk as to how
Yeah.
primitive we were even at this
Yeah.
time, you know, and not recognizing how valuable plant and natural medicines are. So with that, thank you, Rodney.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, man. I want to thank you again for coming on, Trustee Eric Gunnels. Check him out on Facebook. Eric, there's an immense need for what you're doing, and I can't commend you enough, man. But
Thank you.
that about does it for another edition of Daily Chronicles, y'all. We'll catch you on the flip.